Well, the ripple effect of Boise's abortion resolution continues to expand. On Tuesday, during the weekly city council meeting, the city declared it's not going to prioritize city resources to help in an investigation of anyone accused of violating Idaho's new abortion ban, which is set to begin next month. Mayor Lauren McLean told the 208 yesterday the city will not invade the privacy of individuals and doctors who are making really tough decisions. Decisions, she said, that should remain private. She said Boise police, which would do these investigations, would be better off keeping our community safe. Now, there's been some questions, though, about how a city can pass such a resolution saying they won't enforce a law. Can they do that? Is there anything in Idaho law that could force Boise or Boise police to investigate claims of these abortions? Joe Paris, you've been asking that question of a lot of people today, and unfortunately, there really isn't a definitive answer to this.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of unknowns, but some people are pointing to one section of Idaho code that we're going to dive into a second. But the caveat I want to give at the beginning of this story, a lot of the people that are supposed to be in the know, they just don't know right now. It's very new and it's happening now. But I did speak with Wendy Olson today, the former U.S. attorney for Idaho. She's now in private practice, and she shared some thoughts with me really about the section of code that people are talking about. Section of code, Idaho Code, Title 31, Chapter 22, and that deals with the powers of the county sheriffs in the state of Idaho. And the code says this in part, quote, "Whenever in the opinion of the governor, any peace officer of the state refuses to offer assistance when requested to do so, or refuses to perform any duty enjoined upon him by the penal statutes of the state, the governor shall direct the attorney general to commence action under this title of Idaho Code to remove such officer from office." So it creates some questions. Could an officer be removed in the city of Boise if they're not investigating a crime? Well, Olson tells us that the section that we just talked about, it only applies to state police, not local police like Boise police. In that same section of code, it does detail other scenarios where a county prosecutor or a sheriff could involve the governor's office or even the attorney general's office in a situation where state police or local police aren't cooperating after they were asked for help. But Olson says that the Boise resolution, it doesn't really fit this section of law for a few reasons, including having a conflict with Idaho's abortion law.
The city council's resolution really is almost really not in conflict with it for three reasons. One is that the resolution is just that, a resolution. It's not a regulation or ordinance. It doesn't prescribe the behavior of any Boise City citizens. It doesn't, for example, say that it's okay to have an abortion, that providers can provide abortions. That would be in conflict perhaps with the trigger statute. It doesn't say that. And then I think if you look at the language of the Boise City Council resolution, it's actually pretty careful. It says the city will not prioritize investigation providers, and it will not expend additional resources on such investigations. And governmental bodies always have to decide how to allocate scarce resources. I mean, that's what they do. That's part of what, that's why there are budgets, and that's why governments put together programs on what they want to prioritize or not. And I think the Boise City Council is just doing that.
A major caveat here is that anything can be litigated, and it won't be surprising if this comes up in an Idaho courtroom one day soon. Now, the situation also highlights a potential gray area for law enforcement in the Boise area. I reached out to the Ada County Sheriff's Office for how this resolution in Boise could impact them, and they tell us this, quote, "We are still analyzing the situation and figuring out what this means for our agency. What I can tell you is we generally don't investigate reports of crimes in another jurisdiction unless specifically asked to by that agency. In general terms, we investigate activity in our jurisdiction that the Idaho legislature has determined to be crimes and pass that information to the Ada County Prosecutor's Office, who makes a charging decision." So it's a very complicated, intricate situation here. Of note, though, Boise Police has commented on this concept, and they actually tweeted info out a number of weeks ago. In a tweet thread about the decision in Doms v. Jackson, BPD tweeted out, quote, "Pending legal review and input from Boise City Council, Boise Police are not planning on providing additional resources to investigate reports regarding abortion. We understand that there are many strong feelings on the issue, and we will follow the direction of our legal team." So There are a lot of unknowns out there, as we've highlighted several times in this story, but I did reach out to Governor Little's office with some questions. They didn't respond immediately, but Governor Little did take to Twitter to comment, and he actually quoted our story from yesterday's 208. Little writes, quote, Idaho led the nation in protecting preborn lives. When the trigger law goes into effect in a few weeks, abortion will be illegal in Idaho. That's the law of the land, and as elected officials, we must uphold the law. There appears to be a lot of unknowns here in the situation. And Brian, I spoke with Idaho State Police a short time ago. They said, you know, as a law enforcement agency, we believe in upholding the law. If you read between the lines here, there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of questions. You know, the questions that we sent to the governor's office was, you know, is there anything you would do or could do to make sure that the laws of Idaho are being enforced from the executive branch perspective? And we didn't get a response directly to our questions. We talked about the tweet, but a possible explanation here is we don't know.
Yeah, that seems to be the answer you're getting a lot these days. And I find it interesting. You posted that tweet from Boise PD from back last month, June 25th. The mayor, the city council didn't have to make this resolution public. They could have just, as they said, go along with the police declaration. They're saying, yeah, it's not going to be a priority. But I guess they're going out and taking that one step further and declaring it and saying, we're not going to make this a priority when it comes to prosecuting anybody who's accused of this crime.
Right, and to make a comparison for people at home, if you're maybe a little confused here, again, this is a totally different example, but in Ada County, there's our fireworks ordinances.
Yep.
Aerial fireworks are illegal in the county. Of course, though, as we saw over 4th of July weekend, you'll see hundreds of fireworks go up during the night. The decision is made from law enforcement to prioritize how are we going to go after this. So it is a very different situation, fireworks and abortion, of course, not comparing the two, but in the sense of prioritizing budget and prioritizing resources, it's within the purview to do that within a city or county. So we'll have to watch this play out, and we'll follow it here on the 208.
And it's no different than like the city of Star declaring itself a Second Amendment sanctuary city a couple of years ago. If there was a law passed that would regulate guns in such a way, are they just not going to enforce it? I mean, that's the question that we have to. And as we talked about this, there's a lot of unknowns because the dog has finally caught the car in this thing. They wanted this to happen. Here we are, and yet everybody's like, now what? I don't know.
4 words. See you in court.
That's what it be. All right. Thank you very much, Joe.